2020 Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors meeting. Supervisor Rodefer, will you please lead us in the flag salute?
I'd be proud to. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the greatest nation on earth. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Cece, will you please read the public participation procedures?
Good morning. In order to protect the public health and the safety of our Tuolumne County citizens, the Board of Supervisors meeting will be physically closed to the public. During the board meeting, citizens who wish to comment should be prepared to use our call-in line at area code 209-533-6581 to queue for verbal public comment. Public comment will be open and closed individually for each agenda item listed below. If you wish to comment on a specific item, please call in when the board clerk has read the item. The chair will ask if there is any comment from the public, and at that time your call will be taken in the order it is received. The public comment time limit on each item is set for 3 minutes per speaker. The time limit does not apply to the staff. Public access video and audio live streaming through the county website. The public will not have access for public comments. This is available for audio and visual only, and or access Tuolumne County, or public access only for audio. Zoom meeting. The public will not have access for public comment. This is available for listening only. Via computer, or call in at 1-669-900-9128 with webinar ID 987-3738-5155. You also may submit written comments by U.S. mail at the above address or email for retention as part of the administrative record. They will not be read during the meeting. Comments must be received by the board clerk no later than 8 a.m. on the morning of the noticed meeting. To submit written comment by email, please forward them to Christina Cunha, Deputy Clerk of the Board at ccunha@co.tuolumne.ca.us. Important public notice. Under the Governor's Executive Order N 2520, this meeting will allow members of the Board of Supervisors to participate by teleconference, and under Order N 2920 accessibility requirements. If you need swift special assistance during the board meeting, please call 209-533-6581.
All right, thank you. And Supervisor Gray is with us. Are you there, John?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. So at this, we can. At this time, we will do oral communication. And again, for any of the public that is either listening or has participated, we appreciate your patience as we work through this process. Is there anyone that is waiting to speak to the board? No one? All right. Are there any staff reports this morning?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Ms. Riggs, Ms. Carrillo. I'm Michelle Jaquetta, Public Health Director. I'd like to share with you a letter that was presented by to the Health and Human Services Agency yesterday morning during the Public Health Department's virtual staff meeting. To Director Rebecca Espino and employees of the Tuolumne County Health and Human Services Agency. In honor of World Breastfeeding Week, August 1st through the 7th, the Tuolumne County Breastfeeding Coalition has selected you as our breastfeeding-friendly workplace for 2020. You have gone above and beyond to support breastfeeding by establishing a dedicated lactation room with everything employees need to pump breast milk privately and comfortably, as well as consistently providing employees from multiple departments the time needed to pump their milk. As an organization working to support health in Tuolumne County, it is commendable that your agency models practices that support the health of your employees. It is not just employees and their infants that benefit from breastfeeding-friendly practices. Employers who support breastfeeding employees benefit from less staff turnover, improved worker productivity and morale, and less absenteeism, since breastfed babies are healthier than their non-breastfeeding counterparts. As a token of our gratitude, we would like to present you with a certificate and cookies, got milk, next Monday, August 3rd, in conjunction with the Health Department staff meeting. We appreciate your efforts and modeling for other employers. Thank you for your support of breastfeeding families, and it's signed Crystal Seaver, President of the Tuolumne County Breastfeeding Coalition. So we are proud of our continuously caring and dedicated teams and are happy to share this recognition with the board this morning. Thank you.
And thank you for sharing that. I'll say we've come a long way in 30 years since I had children, and really do appreciate the effort that the health department is making and any of the other departments. It is important. Thank you for sharing that.
Good morning. Debbie Batista, Register of Voters this time. I just want to remind all the citizens that this Friday at 5 o'clock will be the deadline to register or to take out papers if one wants to sit on one of the local boards, one of the school boards, one of the water districts, any of the special districts, including the fire districts. There's lots of openings. Every single district has at least 1 to 2 to 3 seats available if you would like to take out papers and run for your district. For most of the districts other than the county schools board itself, all you need to do is be a registered voter in that district to take out papers and run for one of those seats. So far we have over 40 people who have taken out papers. But if you are interested, you want to get involved locally, local boards are one of the best ways to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Any other staff reports? Seeing none, will you please read our first 9 a.m. appointment, or the 9 a.m. appointment?
Presentation and planning status update on COVID-19.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Ms. Carrillo, Ms. Riggs. My name is Rebecca Espino, Health and Human Services Agency Director. Today's presentation, as with many of our prior updates, is filled with statistics, current challenges, and contact information. As we move into yet another chapter of COVID, it is essential that these presentations remain useful and that we are responsive to the needs of the board and this community. Therefore, we are asking for your feedback and suggestions for improving our bi-monthly presentations by using any one of the contact informations that are at the end of our presentation, or you can call me directly at 533-5746. We absolutely appreciate your feedback and your suggestions. Thank you. Dr. Ortiz.
Good morning. Okay, perfect. It's working. So when we put this PowerPoint together, we had numbers as of August 3rd, which is yesterday. So yesterday afternoon, we reported 144 positive cases in county residents. And since the last time we presented, which was the 19th, we have had 2 county residents die directly from the effects of COVID-19. As you can see as well, there have been significant increases in the number of cases and deaths in California and in the United States as a whole. As we mention at every meeting, we watch very closely what is happening in the counties around us because it does affect us as well. We see continued huge increases in the Central Valley cases and deaths, and we know that at this point they are experiencing rates of cases and deaths that are higher than the rest of the state and are receiving state and federal aid, and are working on increasing their staffing and hospital capacity because of that increased need. So
Liza, can I
yes.
ask a quick question?
Of course.
Or, can you inform the public the governor has set up some special assistance for those counties because we do care about our neighbors?
Yeah. So both the feds and the state have assigned specific teams to work with the Central Valley counties to provide additional assistance. That includes additional assistance with staffing of medical facilities and assistance to the public health departments in a variety of sectors, including epidemiology, contact tracing. They're also receiving additional funds from the feds and from the state due to their increased need.
Thank you.
So this graph shows the crudest calculation of 14-day case rate per capita for Tuolumne County, which is one of the criteria that the state uses on the monitoring list. And as you can see, as we reached the later part of July, we crossed over the rate of 100 per 100K. And we have gone up and down around that number since. And we are working with the state on more accurately presenting that data. We'll get into some of that in a few slides here. But the case rate continues to be high is the most important point. We are seeing increased transmission, increased hospitalizations, and at this point we have now documented cases of deaths in county residents. Some of those cases are identified as community transmission, meaning we don't know the exact source of the infection. And some of those cases are identified as person-to-person, meaning that we have identified another positive person that is lab confirmed as being a close contact of that case. We continue to make every effort to conduct case investigations, contact tracing, and supporting isolation and quarantine. Of course, this is dependent on the cooperation from cases, contacts, and employers. And we have been working with the Education and Compliance Unit to reach out and engage with business owners to obtain timely and accurate information concerning case investigations. As is standard for disease reporting, we only report information for county residents. Hospital capacity data is reported publicly on the state website, and that is done through a different data source through hospital polling that happens every day. We continue to prepare for medical surge and supporting the medical surge in Region 4, which includes much of the Central Valley. If people believe they have been exposed by someone who has a confirmed COVID case, we ask that they please contact the Public Health Department at 533-7440, because public health cannot be certain that the individuals who test positive are able to provide all of the names for their close contacts. So if people have additional information and would like information about how best to obtain testing and protect themselves and their loved ones, they can call us at 533-7440. If people are symptomatic, we ask that they self-isolate and call their healthcare provider. If they do not have a healthcare provider, they can call the Adventist COVID hotline, which is 536-5166. And we encourage them to go to the website valleycovidhelp.com, which is a website that has been done in collaboration with the San Joaquin Valley Public Health Consortium to provide information to people for what to do when they are ill. Testing continues to be available at local providers as well as Adventist Health Sonora and the OptumServe State Testing Site in Angels Camp. Adventist Health Sonora continues to have the ability to run PCR tests in-house, but again, that is limited to medically urgent situations. All other PCR tests are done as send-out labs. The OptumServe State Testing Site is at the Calaveras County Fairgrounds, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday. We encourage people to make appointments as walk-in availability is not always guaranteed, and they can get those appointments by going to lhi.care/COVID testing. We understand that there were some scheduling glitches late last week, but the issues have been addressed and appointments are available. I went on yesterday, was able to make an appointment for later today. So people can make appointments to get tested.
Dr. Ortiz,
Yes.
I just want to make a statement. I've had 3 tests there. It is hard to get an appointment, and I have gotten results. The first test was 7 days, second test was 8 days, and my last test was 5 days in terms of getting the results back.
So overall, the latest we were able to pull down from the reporting system in terms of the number of people who have been tested is almost 8,000, so 7,920, which puts us at a testing rate of 147.9 per 100,000, which is less than the cutoff of 150 for the state data monitoring. We had been significantly higher in our per capita testing, but that was because the Public Health Department was coordinating very large amounts of testing done in congregate facilities. So this is a little bit more reflective of our actual baseline of people getting tested. As a reminder, there is a CDPH guidance document which mandates face coverings for virtually everybody in most settings. And we just put a couple images on here to remind people that it does need to cover your nose and your chin, and therefore also your mouth, and does not count as protecting anybody if it does not cover all of those areas. General instructions for face coverings is that it should cover your nose and mouth. It is there to protect other people because it lowers the risk of you transmitting the disease to other people. The recommendation is to wear masks in public settings or when people cannot be 6 feet away from you. And of course, keep it on your face. If you put it around your neck or any other place, it's not doing any good. And try to avoid touching the mask. There is specific language about what is an acceptable alternative to a mask, and that specific language is that it is a face shield with a drape on the bottom edge, as pictured here. A face shield on its own, whether it's an appropriate face shield, as on the left, covering the whole face and the sides of the face and going below the chin, is an important part of personal protective equipment when worn in conjunction with a mask. The face shield alone does not provide sufficient protection. And of course, a face shield that does not cover your whole face does not do anything. So there is no new information, but just a reminder about the current ordered closures in Tuolumne County. All bars, both indoors and outdoors only is allowed for restaurants, wineries, family entertainment centers, card rooms, and museums. Counties on the monitoring list are required to add some sectors to the list of outdoors only functioning. So hair salons, gyms, personal care services, places of worship, offices for non-critical infrastructure sectors, and shopping malls. And schools are instructed to not open for in-person instruction when on the monitoring list. So as of today, at this time in the board meeting, Tuolumne County is not currently on the monitoring list. We are working daily with the state on issues with data reporting. We have identified that they are not seeing the same data that we are seeing and reporting into the system. We have identified that there are significant delays across the state with data not coming into the state reporting system from labs. We expect that there will be some further announcements about those difficulties with the data reporting. We are able to see what we put into the system, but they are not seeing that same information. Our 14-day case rate has been as high as 118.4. On the second, the crudest measure of that case rate was 87.7. But that includes several days where labs were not getting reported into the CalReady system. So that is not an accurate representation of our actual case rate. There are labs that we are not seeing.
Can I ask a quick question about that?
Yep.
I understand the state's not seeing what you're seeing. What you're seeing, what is our current rate?
So I'm not even seeing anything. So the past almost week, definitively for the past 5 days, labs are not coming into us. So normally we get a huge number of labs from major labs such as Quest, LabCorp, all of the larger send-out labs, plus all of some of the smaller ones that have popped up since this epidemic has happened. We aren't seeing those come in. What we can see is if we directly have access to the lab's portal, we can see those. We can see what is coming through Adventist, and that's all we can see. So right now, actually, I don't know.
So to clarify, we're at 87.87, but that's because we have a bunch of stuff out there pending, which could drive it up or down.
So it's not just that it's pending. It has been resulted from the lab, and the people may know, but it is not coming into the state reporting system. So that 87 is based on what we can see, but we know we're not seeing everything.
Okay. All right.
And we expect more information about that coming from the state today.
Dr. Ortiz.
Yep.
When you say you're not seeing everything, You're not seeing negatives as well as positives, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Both.
Thank you.
Yep. This is just a quick update on the Education and Compliance Unit. As you know from our last report, their goal is to help businesses thrive and stay open in a safe way that helps prevent the transmission of COVID-19. The team is currently comprised of 4 individuals, and since June 1st, we have received 190 complaints about 127 facilities. So some of those facilities have more than one complaint, and they have completed 28 site visits. Approximately 30% of the facilities that they have engaged with have already successfully addressed those complaints. And we have begun to receive invoices for PPE reimbursement. So that is chugging along. As a reminder, the county has a COVID data dashboard, which is updated daily. The public health Facebook page shares similar information and directs people to that dashboard, as well as putting out additional information about what people can do to keep themselves and their loved ones safe. That information is also shared on the Tuolumne County website, and the Community Resources Portal does also link to that information, but provides a lot more information about other resources that people can access, including food and links to community organizations which can provide additional services. Everybody is welcome to call the Public Health Call Center at 533-7440 or email us at health@tuolumnecounty.ca.gov. All of our business operating guidelines are available on the state website. tcdisasterassistance.com is a good place for businesses to directly and efficiently access that information. And everybody is welcome to contact us at health@tuolumnecounty.ca.gov for additional assistance with what the operating guidelines state and how to accurately stay in compliance. Any questions?
Are there any other board questions or comments?
A comment. It's more of just a comment and discussion. The concern I have right now is, slide 5, it shows cases per 100,000. It's obviously on a downward trend. And
It's not obviously on a downward trend.
Can we
The
go back?
last 5 days, we have not been receiving data.
Here, go back to it real quick though.
Yep.
Let me see.
The state is expecting to, wait, hang on just one second. I lost where it was. Here we go. We know.
This is up to July 26th. I showed slide 5. Yeah, right there.
Yep.
So I'm seeing a downward trend, but that's only, of course.
And that is a data reporting error that you are seeing.
The downward trend is a reporting error.
Yes, we don't have labs coming in.
Okay. And that is thus the downward trend, is because we don't have data coming in.
Yep. So if you look at, so essentially you're looking at 10 days of data over 14 days. Because you're missing those last several days of normal data input.
Okay.
So
Well,
it
and hopefully
falsely
today we'll
lowers
have
the average.
Hopefully today we might have some more concrete information about that.
Exactly.
Okay. Can you share that with the board once you do get it?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. And it kind of it's kind of sucks because we don't have the data to make decisions on. But I guess what's frustrating to me is we I understand the schools shut down, but we still haven't made it on the monitoring list. And the trigger point for schools closing down was the monitoring list, and we're not there.
I share your frustration. As an epidemiologist, of course, it makes me crazy to not have the data. What we were able to share when we last met with the superintendents was, here's the data we know right now. And that was actually before the reporting systems started to have significant issues. We can share. Obviously, we have a very high rate of transmission. We are hovering right at that point of being on the monitoring list. Several days it seemed that we did qualify for the monitoring list. We're working with the state on trying to resolve these data issues.
Yeah.
And you have to make the decision with the best information you have at the time. So
So hopefully today we'll know when do you expect we'll have the data to know if we're on the monitoring list? Sometime this week?
So as of the last state report, which was late last night after 9 p.m., the last we heard was that they will likely be making an announcement today about the data reporting issues.
Okay, so we need to wait for the data.
Yeah.
All right.
No other questions, comments? I'll ask at this time if there's any public comment.
This is Bruce Erickson, Certified Scientific Instruments. We provide instrumentation for the COVID testing, et cetera. We test our employees here regularly. I'm happy to see that Lisa Ortiz was wearing a mask for possibly the first time today. Sherry and Carl still aren't doing that, and that's fairly appalling when the state has mandated it, and you guys are supposed to be our representatives and set a good example, and you've got the ability now to spew it. Alicia right in front of you, Sherry, day in and day out, and you've done this for weeks. It needs to be stopped. And Sheriff Pooley ought to be in there arresting somebody for lack of compliance because it's mandated. It's not suggested. Secondly, I went ahead and tried to test over in the Angels Camp area 2 weeks ago, and it was a really, really good experience. And the people there are very kind. They're very thorough. And I was pointing out to them that it was a long time before you could actually get an appointment, but I decided because we were sending off some tests to our testing site in Michigan, I'd just go ahead and see if I could do a walk-in, and there was absolutely open to do a walk-in. They said that they were having some booking problems with no-shows, and they had as many as 40 people not show up on a given day. And so there's been lots of opportunity to get tested over there. I can't recommend it enough. Pleasant experience. They don't use the kind of swab where they have to jam it way up your nose, and you can survive it just fine. Something still needs to happen in terms of the number of cars coming up into Tuolumne County on weekends. It's like a freeway going up Highway 108, and the number of people in Twain Harte is just appalling. And we had a street fair a couple weeks ago, which was just another horror show. And so if you guys want to go ahead and keep your businesses open and you're really thinking that you're going to be for business and you don't want to get shut down again, then maybe you guys ought to take a hard look at what you can do to stop the number of people coming up here, at least with some signage like, and I had pointed out one time, but it's got to change, and you guys have got to put in your face masks, just like Lisa did this time. Thank you very much.
Okay. Ms. Carrillo, for the public's benefit, will you please state what the guidance is from the state? And you may have to get a measuring tape up here so folks can see that we're actually conforming to that.
Sure, and I will also note that Dr. Ortiz has been wearing a face mask, so this is definitely not the first time. The state guidance says that if you're in a room where the public does not have access, which is this board chambers, and people are able to maintain social distancing 6 feet apart, they are not required to wear facial coverings.
Thank you. And again, just for the public's benefit, I absolutely do support wearing a face mask when I cannot achieve that social distancing guidance. I have one here and always have one so that in the event that I need to be closer than 6 feet, I definitely put it on. I encourage the public to wear it anytime that they cannot social distance. Is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. We have a 9:30 appointment, and so we'll let those folks set up. And while they are doing that, actually, will the clerk go ahead and redo the consent calendar?
Approving the minutes of the July 21st, 2020 meeting. Adopting Resolution 7220, renewing a local state of emergency and imminent threat of disaster due to severe and persistent fire danger. Number 3 has been pulled. Approving the discharge of accountability for 23 accounts totaling $53,672.13 in the Ambulance Enterprise Fund in accordance with Government Code Section 25259. Approving the notice of completion for contract number 1710 guardrail upgrade project and authorize the chair to sign. Approving the notice of completion for contract number 1715-9 Italian Bar Road Sites 1 through 5 storm damage repair and authorizing the chair to sign. Approving a contract of sale of real property for parcel 09701-028, previously known as North Hess Avenue, with Maya Investments in the amount of $52,000, authorizing the board chair to sign. Adopting Resolution 7320 to approve the summary vacation of a public easement as described on Exhibit A and Exhibit B attached to resolution. Accepting the 2020 CARES Act grant funds for both Columbia and Pine Mountain Lake in the amount of $30,000 each, and authorize the county administrator or designee to sign.
Is there a staff comment?
Yes, Madam Chair. Just a quick comment on item number 7, the sales contract. Under Article 2 of escrow, there are 2 dates on the closing date, August 30th, 2019, October 31st, 2020. Those should be 2020, not 2019. We've talked to the buyer, and he is okay with us striking the 2019 and replacing it with 2020.
Thank you. Are there any items that the board would like to pull? Seeing none, I'll ask if there's any public comment. Bring it back for an action.
Madam Chair, I'll move on consent.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Campbell, a second from Supervisor Rotifer. Will the clerk please do roll call?
Supervisor Sherry Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Ryan Campbell.
Yes.
Supervisor Anai Kirk.
Yes.
Supervisor John Gray.
Aye.
Supervisor Carr Rotifer.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Will the clerk please read our 10 a.m. appointment? I'm sorry, our 9:30 appointment. Goodness.
Consideration of waiving the second reading and adopting Ordinance 3380, amending Chapter 332 of the Tuolumne County Ordinance Code, increasing the transient occupancy tax from 10% to 12% in the unincorporated area of Tuolumne County, and extending application of the tax to campgrounds and recreational vehicle parks, subject to voter approval, and approving a Resolution 7520 and placing the measure on the November 3rd, 2020 ballot, and directing staff to develop an argument in favor of the measure.
And will you please remind the public of the call-in numbers if they wish to comment on this item?
Yes, if you'd like to call in for public comment, please call 209-533-6581 at this time.
Thank you. Staff report.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Liz Peterson with the County Administrator's Office. I am here today requesting your board waive the second reading of the ordinance and adopt it this morning, as well as adopting a resolution calling for an election to increase the transient occupancy tax from 10% to 12% in the unincorporated areas of the county, as well as expanding it to campgrounds and recreational vehicle parks. The California Constitution requires that any extension or increase of an existing general tax must be submitted to the voters for approval. However, prior to being submitted to voters, your board must approve by resolution the ordinance that will be presented to the voters. On July 15th, your board waived the first reading of the ordinance, and your board set the public hearing for adoption of the ordinance and approval of the resolution for today, in time to be placed on the ballot again August 7th. And this would be for the November 3rd, 2020 ballot. So in the packet is the resolution for your board's approval today as well as the ordinance that we are requesting your board approve. In addition, if your board would be interested in writing an argument in favor of the ballot measure, your board has the authority to do that. The argument is limited to 300 words. It must be and would be printed in the county voter information guide as determined by the elections official. And just for your information, also, the law gives a ballot argument submitted by the Board of Supervisors or a member of the board priority for placement on the ballot. So again, we're seeking direction as to your interest in developing that as well. So attached is the resolution and ordinance for your approval.
Are there any board questions at this time?
I had one, I guess, suggestion, and it's has to do with some of the ballot language. I mean, I'm sure we've received a lot of feedback from the community that it was not particularly clear. And so one relatively minor change I'm going to suggest, and by no means I'm wedded to it, is that on the fourth line from the top, from the ballot measure, so this is item number 3 in the resolution, fourth line down, from 10 to 12% should read by 2%. My reasoning here is that from 10 to 12% makes it sound like the tax could increase anywhere between 10 to 12%, which is absolutely not the case. It's a 2% increase, and so my recommendation would be to change that language to say by 2%.
Supervisor Campbell, I'm going to ask Deputy Chris Schmidt to respond because we do have a concern about that language.
So when we drafted this question, basically the ballot question cannot be misleading, and it needs to be representative of the actual measure. And so our office prefers more information than less where possible. I realize we have a 75-word limit for this question, but the 10 to 12% increase was selected for that reason of giving more information. Not that it's an absolute problem. We're just trying to give as much information as we can. So the concern is whenever we reduce it, it's just less information for the voter. We believe it's accurate, but it's ultimately up to your board to decide whether or not you want to make that revision.
What about saying from 10% to 12%?
Second, John.
And just to be clear, one of the reasons we have the language as it is we just want to make sure that there are no legal issues at all with the language. So having it be very clear prevents any type of legal issue on the face of the question.
Well, the argument I'm making here is that it's less clear, even though it may be more information. If it's conveyed well, I don't think it's conveyed very well. And so I think it has the end result of being less clear to voters, because what we're asking for is a 2% increase. And I just think that should be made clear more so than.
John, did you have? Yes, John?
Yeah, this is for Christopher. This is the second reading, and did we not have that wording in the first reading of the resolution? If we change that, we won't be able to do that as a separate reading today?
Today, well, for the ordinance, we need 2 readings. And the ballot question is only in the resolution, which is being considered only today. So the change to the ballot question should not affect the 2 readings that your board will do on the ordinance. As your board can make a minor change to the ballot question if it pleases.
All right, I'm fine with the existing wording based on the statements that you made concerning it. So that is where I'm at.
Any other board question or comment? Okay, I think we'll get back to that under deliberation. Is there any public comment at this time?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Nancy Sykes, former Executive Director of the Tuolumne County Visitors Bureau. My comments today will hopefully provide some historic perspective on what might be confusion regarding appropriate involvement of our Visitors Bureau during this current ballot initiative proposing the increase in the TOT. As your former tourism director, there were 2 such ballot measures during my tenure, and both were supported by the Tuolumne County Lodging Association. Almost 2 decades ago, Measure A and B passed successfully, and a few years later, Measure C failed to pass. But it was only after the Tuolumne County Lodging Association endorsed these measures was I allowed to speak out in favor of these initiatives, a precedent that goes back almost 40 years. And that was when the Lodging Association formed the Visitors Bureau and entered into an agreement with the county and also with the city of Sonora to increase their own lodging tax from 6 to 8%, with the provision that 75% of all revenues collected would go to the county general fund and 25% would fund the Bureau for the purpose of marketing Tuolumne County and all of its tourism assets to the state, the nation, and eventually the world. Unfortunately, a number of years ago, the Lodging Association became dormant, and now a handful of dedicated lodging members and operators are diligently working to reestablish this organization. Until all lodging properties are contacted and allowed input, no decision or endorsement is possible. And until then, Lisa and her Visitors Bureau team are unable to address the issue, which must first be considered by those lodging owners whose businesses are directly involved. It was much easier when prior TOT proposals were before us. The Lodging Association was actively engaged. There was no pandemic. There was no small businesses closing all around us with others hanging on by a thread. Our industry is suffering and damaged, and according to the Wall Street Journal, it has taken the biggest hit, more than any other industry, with restaurants, lodging, and small retail being ground zero. We are all hoping for a new day. On a positive note, I am certain that the long and outstanding relationship between the county and its tourism industry will allow all of us to work together in finding solutions. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, great. This is Terry Marshall. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for Rush Creek Lodge and Evergreen Lodge, and I also volunteer on the Visitors Bureau Board representing lodging for District 4. I am also one of that small group of people that Nancy was referring to who are doing our best to revitalize the Tuolumne County Lodging Association. We've been able to have a few meetings and gather a pretty good amount of information, but as Nancy so eloquently explained, we've not been able to communicate with enough lodging owners to be able to gather everybody together to help provide some kind of endorsement and support for the TOT measure on the ballot. One thing that we've realized in the past few days, which we've tried very hard to reconvene everybody following all of the amazing conversations that we've had with several of the supervisors and a fantastic meeting with Tracy Riggs last week where she was very generous with time and information, and we really appreciate it. What we're finding is that a lot of business owners, General managers are having to do their own housekeeping. They're having to actually cook on their lines because everybody is understaffed and underfunded and really struggling because the pandemic has taken away our two most lucrative markets, which are international visitors and weddings/groups. And we're now having to rely solely on our least profitable market, which is our drive market. And we're all just trying so hard to survive. So we know that the board is looking to the Lodging Association to come through with support for the measure. We just haven't been able to physically get everybody behind that. And just to give you an idea of where we are, I know that Cindy Zielinski, the former president of the Lodging Association, is working on the legalities of bylaws and other forms that need to be filed. And we have yet to be able to elect officers to the board. So we don't officially have a president, a vice president, a secretary, or a treasurer. We also don't have any funding. So we just, between the Lodging Association and lodging businesses themselves, there's not enough resources in terms of people who have time available nor budgets to help participate in being a part of the solution. And I'm here unofficially on behalf of the Lodging Association to say that there is definitely a group of us who are trying our best to move this forward. And we just want you to know that we're trying, but we really need more time to get our businesses through this hump and then be able to get the Lodging Association reorganized. And if there's any time left and you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we do have a 3-minute time limit on comments, but I really do appreciate the both callers that called in with some clarification and some updates, and it would invite any board members that would like additional information to reach out to either of those callers. Thank you. I believe we have additional public comments, so we're getting them on board.
Thank you for holding. Are you ready to speak to the board? Thank you for holding. Are you ready to speak to the board? Okay. Please mute your speakers and I'll put you on mic.
Hi, this is Cindy Zielinski. I represent the Lazy Z Resort, Embers, and sorry, I can't hear you. But I really do appreciate the both callers that called in. Turn off your speakers. Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't hear when I'm supposed to start.
Time over.
Go ahead. It's your turn.
Okay, Sherry's not talking?
No, it's your turn to speak, please.
Okay. Hi, this is Cindy Zielinski, and I represent the Lazy Z Resort, Embers in downtown Sonora, the Royal Olive Manor, and I am a friend of the Lodging Association that is trying to be funded, and a friend of the Visitors Bureau. I'm calling today about a few of my concerns. First concern I have is we've had many conversations with many of the supervisors, and we've talked about how and what happened with the last TOT measure, and things that could have been done better, and things that could have helped it pass. One of the things that, for me, when I looked at it, I kept hearing that the Lodging Association did not support it. And I just want to reiterate, the Lodging Association is non-existent at the time. We're in the process of trying to get like-minded people together in our industry to have an opportunity to either support this or not support this, but have a voice. And in this pandemic, it's been very, very hard. We are going to join and create a lodging association, but who knows what that time looks like. And with this being getting onto the ballot as quick as it is, it really is making it hard for us to create that in a timely manner that we feel like we can be an asset either way. The other thing that I want to bring up, I know that it has been talked about many times, but We keep hearing that this does not affect local residents. Well, it does. Us local residents are the people who own these businesses, and it does affect us. We keep hearing that it doesn't affect us as just an individual who lives in the county. Well, I camp all the time. The idea of taking camping from 0 to 12% is unheard of. And I don't know for other people, but when I camp, I'm camping in my backyard. I'm using the area that I love, that I get to live here and enjoy. And now I'm being taxed on that again. So I really am against that piece of it personally, and I'm not speaking for anybody else, but just as a citizen, I'm against that piece of it. And I think you're going to have a lot of opposition to that piece. I understand our needing for this. I understand that at the end of the day, everybody is suffering. But I really have a hard time on a personal level thinking that this is the time that we decided to put this back on the ballot. If you want to be successful at this, you have to have community support. And I think it's going to be really hard to find community support in this time. That does not mean I'm opposed to it. I'm not opposed to talking about it. I'm not opposed to really having good conversations about it. But when it was put on the ballot last, I was never approached. I approached multiple supervisors to talk about it. I was not asked to put up a sign. I was not asked to talk to fellow people. Yet at the end, we were blamed for it not passing.
Cindy, I appreciate the comments. Unfortunately, we have a 3-minute time limit.
Thank you.
And would, again, encourage the supervisors to reach out to all of the callers if they have the opportunity. There is no additional public comment. I believe we have a caller on the line, but we cannot hear him.
Should we take a brief recess?
Yeah, so we have the caller.
Good morning. My name is Frank Helm from Dodge Ridge, and I'm going to confine, my remarks to the ballot measure itself. With the exception of Supervisor Kirk, I think that the board has made a big mistake in putting this measure back on the ballot. You were asking your constituents, fellow voters, fellow residents of the county, to vote on this again when it was just put on the ballot and rejected by the voters along with the sales tax. And to have a new tax imposed on the voters, and at this time of the devastating effects of COVID-19 on a national level, state level, and now the county, to have a new tax and a tax going from 10 to 12% is, I think, totally unjustified. To give you an idea of the effects of COVID-19 in our area here and around Pinecrest, Camp Blue and Camp Gold, University of California, alumni camps have been not open at all, and that is taking away 600 to 700 people a day, a week, all summer long, that can contribute to our economy, not only just here in the Pinecrest area, but all over the county. The county has suffered greatly with businesses failing, businesses having to furlough employees, and terminating other employees. So again, I think it's been a real mistake on your part to put this back on the ballot. Another item that comes up is creates an unfair, uneven field. Federal campgrounds, state facilities are exempt from this tax that would go from 0 to 12%.
Frank, can you please wrap up? We have a 3-minute timeline.
Okay. There are lots of voters in Tuolumne County that love to go camping, from Fraser Flat to Pinecrest to Clark Fork, Sand Flat, Brightman, Boulder, Eureka Valley, and Kennedy Meadows. They're campgrounds. And
I really do need you to wrap up your comments, Frank.
Okay. So I want to just let the board know that there are an awful lot of people that are voters and love to go camping. I will wrap up my remarks by complimenting Supervisors Kirk and Brennan for assisting us in getting our campgrounds open for the summer.
Thank you, Frank.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Thank you so much for voting. Speak to the Board of Supervisors.
Hello, am I on right now?
Yes.
Because Frank Helm is speaking.
No, you're on right now.
Oh, okay. Even though they can't hear me, is that what you're saying?
Yes, you're live with the supervisors.
Well,
We can hear you.
You're live
oh, you
with
can
the
hear me.
supervisors.
Oh, okay, thank you. This is Stephanie McCaffrey calling. I have McCaffrey House Bed and Breakfast in Twain Harte. I'm also a member of the Visitors Bureau and part of the committee that's trying to form our lodging association. And I think what's important for you to understand is the fact that we have no lodging association. We're working really hard to pull one together to support those things that we need to support in our county. I hope that the frustration that our committee is feeling, can be appreciated by the Board of Supervisors, and that we can be allotted more time to pull together some kind of legitimate organization that can support those things that we need to support in our county. And basically, that's what I have to say. I really appreciate the 25% that the Visitors Bureau receives from the transient occupancy tax, and I want to see that continue. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you for the comments. Is that it on public comment? All right. Thank you very much for all of those that called in, and again, for your patience as we work through this process, comment process. I'm going to bring this back to the board now. John, I'll start with you. Do you have any comments?
Just a quick comment. I do appreciate the Mr. Helms' comments. The thing that we have to remember was the timing on these particular ballots, that if we have not put it on this year, we're looking at a number of years down the line before we have to do it. And that's the nature of the election process and voting process. So that's my comments.
Any other board comments before we take an action? I've got a few comments, but I'll ask board members first. Supervisor?
Well, I'm honestly torn, actually very much so. We made the case for additional revenue back in March, or prior to the March election. And I think that case is still valid today, and because of COVID, even more so. But then on the flip side, people's ability to provide government with more revenue is just as difficult a situation for them as the revenue situation is for us that are trying to run a government. The public spoke. I don't think we did perhaps as well as we could have fighting for those ballot measures in the March election cycle. But the people have spoken, and I appreciate Supervisor Gray's comment. It will be 2 years before we can have another opportunity to ask the public for revenue increasements, revenue enhancements. In those 2 years, we are going to have to cut significantly our government services to our people. And the same people that vote no on ballot measures for increased revenues are the same people that are banging on our door and ringing our telephone off the hook to keep things like recreation and libraries and all of our services. We keep picking on recreation and libraries. Those aren't the only ones that are going to get hammered. So on the one hand, I recognize that we need to increase our revenues. On the other hand, I agree with a couple of the public speakers on this, that timing-wise, one, we got told no once. How many times do we need to get told no? And so I'm really torn. I'll let you know where I'm going to vote when Supervisor Brennan, Chairwoman Brennan, calls for the vote, because I don't know.
Supervisor.
Sure. Take this off so people can hear. I think I'm 6 feet away. I won't get into much debate over it. I've been pretty clear. And I just want to, I think I wrote them down this morning. There's 4 main reasons why I'm against the TOT. The first one is the economy. The second one is Californians they're tax weary right now. The third, this started off as a fire conversation a few board meetings ago, and then it turned into a general revenue discussion. And I really want a fire revenues dedicated stream for fire. So whether TOT passes or not, come spring, I think it's going to be very hard to sell the fire parcel fee. I already think it's going to be hard, but if this passes, people are going to be wondering, why are we back asking for more? And if it doesn't pass, we've just put people through the process again of discussing revenue streams. And again, Californians are tax worry. So, when we call for the vote, you guys know where I stand. If the board does decide to move forward with the TOT, I would just strongly recommend looking at the Visitors Bureau. There's very few CDDs, but there's very few departments in government who actually provide revenue. The Visitors Bureau provides revenue, so I think that should have been discussed more thoroughly as far as what their contract may look like. If there's a time to be having more funding for that department to go after, I think it was $270 million the last fiscal year, the year before that. I mean, it's the number one revenue generator visitors are. So I think that should have been discussed more. And then the TOT on campgrounds, again, I'm all about keeping it simple, stupid when it comes to ballot measures. But to ask campgrounds to go from 0 to 12% it's a 12% tax. It's not a 2%, it's a 12%. And there's already several campgrounds I've talked to that they're not really making it. And to do that, and I understand because they have to collect it, but there's still a process involved, and I think it would have been maybe better to phase that in over a couple of years. So I think those are suggestions if the board does move forward. Maybe we're too late in the game, but that's where I stand on TOT. So thank you for hearing me out.
Supervisor Campbell.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I do support this. I've long considered the TOT the most appropriate way to increase revenues in our county. It's something that needs to come up to parity with other counties and cities in our region. I've heard the arguments, and I think that I've communicated with most of the individuals in the lodging and hospitality industry that I have a relationship with and contacts with. But I've also received hundreds, dozens of emails over the short period of time that I've been on the Board of Supervisors. Emails, phone calls, letters asking for the board to pave our roads, to provide better fire protection, to increase law enforcement patrols in areas of our county that take 45 minutes for a response from law enforcement. I've received a vast number of contacts from constituents and folks in our county asking us to maintain our libraries and our parks. And people often think that the Board of Supervisors has so much authority over what happens in our county, that we pull the strings of the government and make things happen. Well, we actually have very limited authority on what we're able to do. We can do essentially two things. We control the purse strings of the county, and so in doing so, we can make cuts to ensure that we have a balanced budget. That's one of our responsibilities. Now, we've done that. The 2 years that I've been on the board, we've made cuts, significant cuts. We've laid off employees. We have consolidated departments. We have really diminished the services that we provide to our community. And in doing so, I think that we have fulfilled a responsibility to make sure that we have a balanced budget. But you cannot cut your way to prosperity. And so that brings me to the other authority that the Board of Supervisors has, the other major authority, and that is to look at revenue sources. And so in looking at revenue sources, you want to make sure that the financial house of the county is in order, but you don't want to do it on the backs of the residents. You don't want to unduly harm the residents of Tuolumne County. And no one likes taxes. I don't like them. I don't think you'll find anybody that says they do. But what we're talking about here has, I'm not saying it won't have any impact on lodging, hospitality, our tourism in Tuolumne County, but it will have significant impact on our ability to provide services. And you know what? That helps tourism too. If we have decent roads, if we have parks that are open and funded and available for people, if we have law enforcement and low crime, those things have positive impacts on tourism. If we're able to fund the Visitors Bureau at a level where it's able to do its job, that has a significant impact on tourism and our ability to bring revenues into this county. And all of those things can be supported by an increase of the transient occupancy tax. And it's time, it's time. We are lower than other counties, and I have heard from many constituents who have regretted that the county didn't do a good enough job explaining what this tax is for. And so I am open to talking to anybody from lodging or tourism-related industries, anybody from the community to try and get some consensus about this. But we're out of time. If we don't act now, we will have to wait at least 2 years to approach revenues in this county. Thank you.
Okay, so I know at our last meeting, I expressed my concern about the timing of this, because I do think that the timing is very poor. Having said that, I did vote for it because of the simple fact that it would be 2 years before we could revisit this subject and understand the fiscal dire straits that the county is in for a lot of reasons. I want to talk just for a minute about campgrounds because I'm going to actually, and I have stated this position for a number of years, actually, since the rim fire, because I had folks reach out and say, you can't tax dirt or you're taxing local residents that use our campgrounds. The fact of the matter is that the majority of the major fires that we have been started by campfires that have gotten out of control, and they do cost the county money. There was a fire just Sunday that I saw just above the Donnell Vista, and actually was started from a campfire in a campground that got out of control. And the very first responders that I saw up there were 2 Forest Service rigs and a unit from CAL FIRE. And CAL FIRE resources were on it immediately flying, and that is what stopped that fire. There is a cost to the county. There will not be a cost share. I have been talking to the sheriff at length about getting resources up there to help with public safety, because while some of the organized camps are not in operation, we have a tremendous amount of visitors on our forest, and the sheriff has been working with the Forest Service to figure out how to provide additional resources. Some of that is reimbursed, but I do not believe we get at full cost recovery on it. So the reality is, whether they are our local residents using the campgrounds or visitors from out of the county, we are in fact utilizing county resources to provide services on those campgrounds. Now, the one comment that was made that I absolutely agree with is that if it is a federal and a state campground, we cannot apply the tax. And I think that's wrong. I think that is fundamentally wrong, and so I've started conversations already with our congressman about that. I don't have any illusions that we're going to gain a lot of traction, but until we start, we don't know what kind of movement we'll have, because I don't think that is equitable, and I think that there should be a mechanism by which they pay that TOT. But fundamentally, I believe that, again, whether they're our residents or, like I believe the majority are from out of the county, they are using county resources, and I think it is appropriate for them to be paying the TOT. So I come back to my real dilemma, which is around timing, and I just am very concerned for a couple of the reasons that the callers articulated, that the timing is just wrong on this. But if not now, I am concerned about where we will be 2 years from now. And then with regards, if we do vote in favor of this, about taking the conversation from in the language, I am in favor of keeping it at as it reads, from 10 to 12%, because I do think that is, I went back and reread it. It says by increasing the tax rate from 10% to 12%. I think that is fairly clear. I don't see any ambiguity in that, except when we're talking about the campgrounds, because they will be going from 0% to 12%. But I think that is highlighted in the language. So, looking for action on this.
Madam Chairwoman, I move we move on staff recommendation, waiving the second reading of the ballot measure.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Supervisor Campbell and a second from Supervisor Gray.
May I just make one comment?
Yes.
I would like to thank Supervisors Campbell and Brennan. I'm convinced.
I'm sorry I'm not a better
Will
talker.
the clerk please do roll call?
Supervisor Sherry Brennan.
A very reluctant yes.
Supervisor Ryan Campbell.
Aye.
Supervisor Anaya Kirk.
No.
Supervisor John Gray.
Aye.
Supervisor Carl Rodefer.
Noting that the timing is very poor, and that's my only reluctance, aye.
Motion carries 4-1. I believe there was also a question on language. Need to go back to the item.
My motion was on the unamended language.
All right, thank
So
you.
no change.
Thank you. All right.
I'm sorry, did your board want to provide any direction as to developing an argument in favor of the measure?
Thank you.
I'll be happy to work with staff on that.
Okay.
If any.
If you need someone else, I'll be happy to help you, but I'm happy with Supervisor Campbell leading the effort.
All right, Supervisor Campbell will work with you, but I'd like to have Supervisor Rodefer just looped in also, please.
And we can bring that to your board for approval at the next meeting.
All right, thank you. All right. Actually, we are going to take a very short recess so that our 10 a.m. presentation can get set up. So we'll recess until 10:30.
Five, 8-1 for public comment now.
Ms. Yaley.
Good morning, Quincy Yaley, Community Development Department Director. I'm here with Darren Grossi, the Director of the Tuolumne County Transportation Council, and joined via Zoom technology with our consultant from Wood Rogers, Mario Tambolini. Today we are here to present to you and ask your board to adopt a resolution for vehicle miles traveled thresholds for the California Environmental Quality Act compliance related to transportation analysis. This is a very riveting subject. I expect your full attention during this item so that we can move forward with gusto as we move into development projects beyond today. So the state of California adopted SB 743, which changed the rules about how traffic impacts are analyzed. In the past, we looked at how long you were sitting at an intersection. What was the congestion like that the driver experienced on our local roadways and intersections? And with the adoption of SB 743, we are moving away from that level of service standard of congestion and looking at how the project changes trip lengths, which is measured in vehicle miles traveled, or VMTs. This is in response to the state of California's push to achieve air quality and climate change targets and goals. There are other benefits of reducing vehicle miles traveled, such as improving the environment as well as human health. And when we look at implementing a project and look at VMT mitigation down the road, we can also potentially slow and alleviate the deterioration of our natural environment. In December of 2018, the California Natural Resources Agency, which oversees CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act, adopted some new regulations implementing VMT, and they identified VMT as an alternative to the LOS, or level of service delay analysis, when we are evaluating a development project's transportation impacts, or I should say even a roadway capacity or other highway improvement project. Your county, as the lead agency, has the power to establish your own thresholds of significance under CEQA, which is the thresholds that we will be comparing future projects against for significant or less than significant impacts. And they have recommended that rural agencies do evaluate thresholds on a case-by-case basis in respect to local context and local planning situations on the ground. We will still be using level of service moving forward, as our Tuolumne County General Plan does identify level of service as from a policy standpoint of something that we want to look at when we're evaluating development projects. However, we do need to adopt some levels of significance for VMT, vehicle miles traveled, so that we can process development projects in accordance with CEQA. The Tuolumne County Transportation Council has led this effort, and it was facilitated by a steering committee which was supported by the consulting firm Wood Rogers. This steering committee included members from County Public Works, Community Development, County Council, as well as representatives from the City of Sonora and Caltrans. We've had several meetings with this steering committee to provide feedback and input into the process. The VMT CEQA Threshold Project did go to the Board of Supervisors Planning Committee in February and June of this year. And the first meeting, we presented general information to this committee. And in June of 2020, they did provide staff direction, which we will get into later in our presentation. Before I turn it over to Mario, again, just to summarize why we're here today, one is to explain VMTs, or vehicle miles traveled, to your board. Secondly, to go over the process we will be using to analyze projects using the VMT criteria. And lastly, to have your board adopt thresholds with respect to the CEQA analysis that staff does when we are evaluating a project. So with that, I will turn it over to Mario, who is, I believe, in Southern California, joining us today through the wonders of technology. So Mario, if you can hear me, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Quincy. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you, Mario. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. As Quincy said, my name is Mario Tambolini, and I work with Wood Rogers, and we have been assisting the Tuolumne County Transportation Council with the Tuolumne County SB 743 Vehicle Miles Traveled, or VMT study. We have come before the board and presented a general overview on SB 743 and VMT last year. And since then, we have continued to do a lot of research and analysis to help determine the best methodologies and path forward for the county to utilize VMT in their CEQA process moving forward. And today specifically, we're going to focus on the VMT thresholds that we are going to recommend be used for the county as part of the CEQA process moving forward. And so Quincy did a good job of giving a general overview of what Senate Bill 743 is and what it means for us. But I just wanted to touch again on kind of the most important aspects of SB 743 that are going to affect why we need these thresholds moving forward. As Quincy said, SB 743 said that we can no longer use LOS and delay for CEQA. We must use a new methodology moving forward. And the language in SB 743 specifically states that that new methodology needs to more appropriately balance the needs of congestion management with statewide goals such as reduction of GHGs, development of a multimodal transportation network, and a promotion of a diversity of land uses and infill development. And I just want to note that despite the fact that SB 743 states that the language in SB 743 really suggests a better balance of competing priorities, but it does in no way require local agencies to be 100% consistent with the state goals. All the power to determine thresholds for a local agency, such as Tuolumne County, is left with the local agency, and it is up to them to determine the right level of balance between county goals, promotion of new development, reduction of congestion, reduction of GHGs, and everything else. And so, as Quincy said, in the currently revised CEQA guidelines that were released in 2018, VMT was identified as the new criterion for evaluating transportation in CEQA moving forward. And so in order to effectively do that job, we need to establish thresholds for the county to help us with that process when evaluating VMT. So quickly, what we're going to talk about today is just a really quick background on what thresholds are in CEQA, and then we're going to look at recommended thresholds for two types of projects. We're going to look at land use projects, so new residential commercial developments, and then we're also going to look at new transportation projects, such as a roadway widening, and how those will be evaluated. So for some quick background, generally, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the CEQA process, but generally a threshold in CEQA basically sets what level of an impact is considered a significant impact. And specifically for VMT, when we set a threshold, we're going to say how much VMT can a project generate before it's considered to be a negative or a significant impact on the environment. And generally, CEQA tells us that these thresholds that we're going to be talking about today need to be developed through a public review process. They need to be supported by substantial evidence. And generally, if you want to use thresholds as part of an environmental review process, it is a good idea to adopt them through ordinance, resolution, rule, or regulation. Just another couple notes on some language that we'll be using throughout the presentation. If we ever refer to the city, we're generally referring to Sonora. If we ever refer to just the county, we usually mean unincorporated Tuolumne County. And if we refer to the overall region, we're going to be talking to the entirety of Tuolumne County, including the city. So getting started here, we're going to take a look at what thresholds we recommend for evaluating land use projects moving forward. And to start off, I think it's important to note that the state recognizes that not all land use projects are going to have a significant VMT impact. Some projects you can tell are going to be low VMT generators just by their characteristics. And so basically the state allows you to develop what's called a list of screening criteria to identify those projects. And basically what these are is a checklist that if you have a project and it meets one of these criteria, you automatically know it has a less than significant transportation impact, and you don't have to do any further analysis. So this really streamlines the process for smaller projects. So the list of screening criteria that we've developed for Tuolumne County, which is consistent with Governor's Office of Planning and Research guidance, is as follows. So if you have a residential, office, or industrial employment project located with a low VMT area, you'd be screened out. And generally, we would define low VMT areas by analyzing the existing conditions in the regional travel demand model, and we provide maps outlining those low VMT areas. If you're a very small project that generates less than 110 trips per day, and you're consistent with the current county general plan, you would have a less than significant impact automatically. Any local serving retail projects less than 50,000 square feet would automatically be considered to have less than significant impact. These are things like grocery stores, banks, drugstores, and this is because these types of facilities typically serve the local community. And oftentimes, by adding a new one of these, you're typically filling a need in a community. You're locating one of these services closer to people's homes and, in general, shortening trips for the region. Similarly, any local serving public facilities such as schools, parks, post offices, police stations, these would be automatically screened out for similar reasons due to local serving retail. And then once again, or in addition, any projects that are 100% affordable housing and are located in the current identified communities, which were identified as part of the Tuolumne County General Plan, would be assumed to have a less than significant impact. If you ever have a mixed-use project, so a commercial and residential project, for example, mixed together, each aspect of the project would be compared to its own screening criteria. They'd essentially be treated as two separate projects. Also, if you ever have a redevelopment project, if the new land use generates less total VMT than the existing land use, you could automatically assume the impact would be less than significant. So that being said, what happens if you have a project that's a little bit bigger? It doesn't meet one of those screening criteria. If that's the case, you would have to do a full analysis of how much project VMT is generated, and then that's where you would compare that project VMT to a threshold to determine if it's a significant impact or not. And to start out, we're going to talk about some recommended thresholds for residential, office, and industrial projects. We single these out first because the state basically recognizes that these three land uses are really the primary drivers of VMT throughout the state. This generates the biggest vehicle travel overall. And so during our analysis process, we evaluated three different options, and we're going to go through those one at a time now. So option one is what we call staying consistent with the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, or OPR, technical advisory recommendations. So basically, the OPR has put together a document that recommends some general guidelines that could be used throughout the state. However, it's important to note that these numbers were very generalized and often based on research for urban and suburban areas. So they may not be a perfect fit for a more rural area like Tuolumne County. And once again, they're just recommendations. There is nothing requiring us to follow these. And so the recommendations from the OPR state that a project's impacts would be less than significant if it generates VMT that is 15% below the existing average for existing land uses in the region. So for a residential project, you'd have to be 15% below existing VMT per capita for the region. Similarly, if you're an office project, you'd have to be 15% below the existing VMT per employee for the region. So this would require a pretty big reduction in project VMT to have a less than significant impact. 15% is a pretty big number in VMT reduction to achieve. And so the pros and cons of trying to follow this methodology for Tuolumne would be, pros are, you're staying consistent with general state recommendations, and the state kind of came up with this 15% number by looking at what would be required to meet their established GHG targets. But really, that's kind of all the pros for it. The cons are that really that 15% reduction is just going to be too big to achieve for most areas of the county. It's based on general research. Like I said, it's really more applicable to urban areas than rural areas. And kind of the most important part is that it's not consistent with the Tuolumne County General Plan and RTP. I want to note that any thresholds that do get adopted for projects would need to be applied actually to the general plan the next time the general plan is updated as well. So it's important that whatever we adopt is achievable for the overall county moving forward. And just to give you an idea of what this threshold would mean, we've highlighted the areas here in bright green, and this is specifically for residential projects. This is where residential land uses today are 15% below the overall region average. So generally, if you were in one of those bright green areas, you could come in potentially 15% below the regional average and have a less than significant impact. If you're anywhere outside those bright green areas, you would likely have a significant impact under this option. So the next option we considered, option two, we thought, well, maybe the general statewide guidance doesn't really apply to us. So what if we look at something more specific to the county? So what we looked at was generally we already know that long-term growth in the county is guided by the general plan. And the county general plan actually already contains a number of policies that are consistent with the goals of SB 743. And I've highlighted some of those here. So these policies promote things like focusing growth in clustered communities, promoting infill development, promoting multimodal transportation and transit. All these goals are already in the general plan and already would help reduce GHGs and VMT. And so we decided one way to come up with a custom scenario was, well, let's look at what build out of the general plan through 2040 would already look like. What effect that would have on VMT for the region currently. So we looked at the 2040 future year scenario in the regional travel demand model. And we determined that with construction, with land uses following the growth outlined in the current general plan, we already anticipate by 2040, the VMT per capita of the region will fall by 3%, and the VMT per employee of the region will fall by 1%. And this is simply due to following the clustered development and the overall goals already outlined in the general plan. And so since we're already potentially achieving a reduction in VMT with the general plan, we could use this to establish a slightly more easy to meet threshold, a more appropriate threshold for the county. And so the second option we're considering as a threshold is that the project's impacts would be considered less than significant if your residential project, your project's VMT is 3% or more below the regional average VMT per capita. And if you're an office project, a project's VMT is 1% or more below the regional average VMT per employee. So similar idea to the state's guidance, but only a 3 or 1% reduction is needed instead of a 15%. And so the pros for this method is that it is based on data specific to the county, and it is consistent with the kind of the approved long-term growth that's already occurring in the county. However, it does not take into account Tuolumne County's identified communities or encourage clustered development. Generally, since you're comparing a project to the regional average, really the areas that benefit from this, just like we saw in option 1, are all the areas clustered around Sonora, basically the areas that are have the most urban characteristics. And to kind of demonstrate exactly how the different areas of the county would be affected by option 2, we're looking at the same map as option 1, but now both the bright green and the dark green areas shown on the map would be below the threshold. So generally, if you're building a new residential or office project in one of those green areas, you'd be below the threshold. And if you're building anywhere else, you'd be above it. So as you can see, this helps certain other areas be below the threshold. But once again, it's really just that Sonora area that benefits. Everybody in the outlying communities would generally have a significant impact on transportation under this option. And so the final and third option that we looked at was trying to take into account both the planned growth and the county like we did for option 2, but also trying to start to take into account where that growth is planned to occur. And kind of before we go too much further, I just want to talk a little bit about generally in CEQA, at the very basic level, an impact is considered a change to the existing environment. So if we want to come up with kind of a reasonable threshold, generally the best place to start is just if you're operating differently or worse than existing conditions, that could be considered an impact. So one way you could view that is if a proposed project, as long as it operates the same or better than the existing average for existing similar land uses, you can consider that to be a less than significant impact. And generally, if you're comparing a project to the current existing conditions, I just want to note that it would be existing conditions at the time that the project environmental documents are prepared. So if you did a project today, you would be comparing it against your 2020 existing average VMT for similar land uses. If you were analyzing a project in 2025, you would be comparing that project generally against the existing conditions in 2025. So that's important to note that when we say baseline conditions, that's what we mean. So generally, for this option 3, we decided, okay, I think it's reasonable to, instead of trying to compare the project to a reduction in VMT, let's just compare it to baseline conditions. And when you compare it to baseline conditions, it's also important to note you don't necessarily have to just look at the overall county. Tuolumne County contains quite a few different land use types, transportation infrastructures, and travel patterns, depending on which portion of the county you're in. And I think, we believe that it's worth accounting for this and acknowledging this when developing a threshold. And so in order to acknowledge this, we divided the county into 9 different sub-areas based on travel characteristics, proximity, and geographical features. And so those sub-areas are shown on the slide here. And also generally we tried to locate these so that they're roughly centered around one or two of the identified communities in the general plan. And so as part of this, we also looked at the average VMTs per capita and per employee for each of the sub-areas. And so these would essentially represent the baseline conditions for VMT for those sub-areas. And as you can see, it varies quite a bit. If you look at Jamestown, you have quite a bit lower VMT than you would in East County, where it's quite a bit more rural, for example. And as I had mentioned before, it's important to note that when we're establishing a baseline condition as a threshold, it will be the year that the project is going through its CEQA process. And so in order to actually know what VMT and what the baseline would look like in a future year, we can calculate VMT for existing year and for the future 2040 in our regional travel demand model and interpolate between the two scenarios. So we have a good idea of what the baseline VMT will look like, what the project should be held against in each of the future years. And that's what this project or this table shows here. And so with all that information being said, we decided that a reasonable threshold for option 3 could be a project's impacts would be less than significant if, for a residential project, the project's VMT is less than or equal to the sub-area average VMT per capita under baseline conditions, and the project is consistent with the county general plan and the RTP. And then basically similar idea for office industrial, but you're comparing it to the baseline VMT per employee conditions. So basically what this is saying is wherever a project is located, you would determine which sub-area it falls in, and it would need to operate basically the same or better than the existing average VMT per capita or VMT per employee for that sub-area. So pros for this methodology is that once again, this is based on data specific to the county. It's consistent with the long-term growth that's already planned for the county. And unlike options 1 or 2, it also takes into account the Tuolumne County's identified communities and encourages clustered communities, which is a good strategy in rural areas to reduce VMT. The only cons of this methodology is that it is, from a GHG reduction standpoint, perhaps the less strict of the 3. It does result in a reduction in VMT over time, as we showed by analyzing build out of the general plan. However, it might be occurring at a slightly slower rate than if we had used one of the other options. And so now we're going to highlight exactly how that sub-area baseline method, that option 3 threshold, would affect which areas would be significant or not through the county. So you can kind of see the sub-area boundaries in dark black on the map here. And you can see basically that the areas, basically any of the areas in the teal, the dark green, or the green are below the sub-area baseline VMT for that specific sub-area that it's in. So you can see with option 3, there's quite a few more green areas spread out throughout the county. You have some in Lake Don Pedro, you have some near Groveland, you have some up all the way on SR 108 to the northeast. And you can also see that basically every identified community has at least some areas that would fall below the threshold using this option 3. So as a quick summary of these 3 options that we're recommending or that we analyzed, option 1 would require a project to be 15% below the existing average VMT. Option 2 would require a project to be 3 to 1% below the existing regional average VMT. And then option 3 would require a project to be below the just baseline conditions average for the sub area. And so after evaluating all these options and determining which we think would work best for Tuolumne County, we're recommending that option 3, the sub area baseline, would be the best threshold for residential and office projects. And this is because it's consistent with the county general plan and the RTP. It does encourage a reduction in VMT, and it acknowledges the different characteristics of the various areas of the county. And also it doesn't discourage development in those other identified communities like options 1 and options 2 might. And once again, reasons options 1 and 2 aren't recommended are option 1 is not consistent with the general plan, and just really it's not achievable to get that big of a reduction for most projects. And then for option 2, it's important to note that while it is consistent with the overall growth plan for the area, it's not consistent with where that growth is intended to occur. So moving on from office and residential projects, we're going to talk about some recommended thresholds for other land use types. Generally for retail or non-office commercial projects, we would recommend that the threshold be set at no net increase in total regional VMT. And so basically this means if any new VMT is generated for the region by a new retail project, it would have a significant impact. But I would note that, remember, this basically would only apply to large regional serving retail, as any local serving retail is already screened out. It's part of the screening criteria we already discussed at the beginning of the presentation. For hotels and campgrounds, we looked at 2 different possibilities for a threshold. We looked at a no net increase threshold, similar to the retail we just talked about. And then we also looked at a threshold that would say a project would need to be consistent with the general plan, and that its VMT would need to be less than or equal to the sub-area baseline average VMT per room or per campground site. Kind of similar to the option 3 we discussed for residential and office. And we'll talk a little bit more about the hotels and campgrounds in just a minute. For mixed-use projects, you would analyze each land use type in the project as a separate project. And then once again, for redevelopment projects, if the new project generated less VMT than the existing land use, you'd have a less than significant impact. If it generated more VMT than the existing land use, you would have to evaluate it as a brand new project and compare it to the appropriate threshold that we had discussed previously. So just really quickly, I wanted to discuss about the 2 options that we have for hotels and campgrounds. The no net increase in total regional VMT method, where any increase in VMT would be a significant impact, would be a very difficult criteria for projects to meet. It would probably result in most, if not all, hotels and campgrounds having a significant impact. And I think we kind of want to highlight that this likely isn't really following the intent of the purpose of SB 743. Generally, the intent of SB 743 is you want to establish thresholds that encourage smart development. And if all land uses that are developed have an impact, you're really not giving benefit to those that are having lower VMT than others. And you're really not, promoting that smart development that you're supposed to be. It's also worth considering that generally growth to Yosemite, growth to other tourist portions of Tuolumne County and the region is generally growing over time, regardless of if a new hotel is built in the county or not. Generally, you could argue that if a new hotel project wasn't built, a lot of the same people are still going to go visit the region. They're just going to stay in a new location. And so really, if we build new hotels and new campgrounds in the area, what it does is it gives us the opportunity to develop lower VMT generating sites to potentially redistribute visitor trips closer to their destinations and basically lower guests' VMT as they come to the region by locating them in these better areas. And so basically the way the threshold would work if we didn't use the net increase threshold is that a project's impacts would be less than significant if, for a hotel, a project's total hotel VMT per room would be less than or equal to the sub-area average hotel VMT per room under baseline conditions, and the project is consistent with the county general plan and the RTP. And then similarly for a campground, if the project's total campground VMT per site is less than or equal to the sub-area average campground VMT per site under baseline conditions, and the project is consistent with the county general plan and the RTP. And here you can see these are the existing average hotel generated VMT per room and campground VMT per site of the different sub-areas calculated using data we've collected and the recent update to the Tuolumne County travel demand model. And so the pros of going with this sub-area baseline method for hotels and campgrounds is that, once again, it's going to be based on data specific to Tuolumne County, and we believe it's reasonably achievable for certain projects. And it also, the most important part is that it promotes the development of those lower VMT hotels and campgrounds. It promotes you to build hotels and campgrounds closer to visitors' destinations, potentially provide shuttle services, provide maybe some on-site amenities for them to stay on site. And so basically we think this best meets SB 743's goals of promoting smart development. Just really quickly, as an example of how this threshold might work for a new hotel project, I just wanted to go over a very simple theoretical example. For example, if you had a new 150-room hotel to be located on Highway 120, and it's going to be located approximately midway between Groveland and Yosemite, how would we analyze that? Let's see, this project in question also provides some on-site employee housing. It provides on-site market that provides some small food items as well as lunch, things like that people could eat on site. And this particular project, based on its location, would be located in the East County sub-area based on the sub-area map we created. So the way we'd analyze this is, number one, we would generally treat each portion of the project separately. So your employee housing in the market could be screened out as small projects or local serving retail projects. And then you'd basically be just looking at the visitor VMT per room to determine the impacts of the project. And generally, if you plug this hotel into the travel demand model, you would find that the project VMT is about 102 hotel VMT per room. And that if you look back at that table that we prepared for hotel average VMT for existing condition, the average VMT for that sub-area today is 129.1 VMT per room. So this project would actually come in about 20% lower than the existing average hotel VMT in that East County sub-area. And this is specifically due to, it's quite a bit closer to Yosemite than a lot of other existing hotels in the area, which is where a lot of the people are going that would visit there. And also you get some benefit for that employee housing is keeping employee trips short. It means their commute distances are going down. And also because they're providing that on-site market, you're capturing some visitor trips that might stay on site to eat a meal there. And so if you used the sub-area baseline threshold to evaluate this project, since it comes in 20% lower than the existing average hotel VMT for the sub-area, it would have a less than significant impact. However, if you had used the no net increase criteria for this project, it would likely have had a significant impact. And so before we move on to the next land use types, I wanted to underline that we are recommending the sub-area baseline thresholds for hotels and campgrounds as the best fit for Tuolumne County thresholds. One last category of land use projects that I want to talk about is the bigger scale projects and plans that you might have to evaluate. Like I had mentioned earlier, any update to a land use plan, such as the Tuolumne County General Plan land use element, would have to be evaluated against the same standard as individual projects. And the way you would do that is you would aggregate all the proposed land use growth of a specific type that's included in the general plan, and you would compare the average VMT generated by those aggregated land uses against those same thresholds that you would for a project by project basis. Finally, I also wanted to mention that when you adopt these efficiency-based thresholds, so when you look at a project's VMT per capita or VMT per employee, you generally only have to evaluate the project once, and that lets you evaluate both the existing plus project and the cumulative project conditions at once. The idea being that if you have a project that generates low VMT per capita, you know for a fact that you're going to be helping reduce the long-term VMT generation of the county per person. And then finally, if for other types of evaluation, so for retail, for land uses that do no net increase evaluation of VMT, you would have to do a separate cumulative and existing conditions analysis for those projects. And then as a kind of final wrap up of the land use thresholds that we discussed, this is a example, or this is kind of the typical process that a land use project would go through when being evaluated against CEQA thresholds. You'd start at the top left, the green bubble, and you basically go down and answer a bunch of questions and end up at one of the red boxes, red hexagons, that tells you if your impact is significant or not. And generally the way this works is if you end up on the right side of the chart, you would have to do a full VMT analysis, likely using the travel demand model, and compare your project against thresholds that we discussed. But if you stay down the left-hand side of the chart, that's where you might get screened out for being a small project. You might be located in a low VMT area, or you might just have to do a very simple VMT analysis with a tool or screening map to determine if your project would be significant or not. And so that wraps up our discussion for thresholds for land use projects. And the final topic we're going to cover today is recommended thresholds for transportation projects. And so these are things like sidewalk improvements, roadway improvements, widenings, new transit stops, basically all those types of improvements you would make to the local transportation system. And so similar to land use projects, the state recognizes that certain types of transportation projects are also low VMT generating projects, and that you could basically screen those projects out as well. So we've also developed a list of screening criteria for transportation projects, and generally we've identified, consistent with the state recommendations, that projects such as anything to do with public transit, active transportation, construction of complete streets, any rehab, maintenance, replacement projects, any construction of just turn pockets or auxiliary lanes even, any lanes that's not a through lane would be considered to be a low VMT generating project and would not require any VMT analysis. You could assume less than significant VMT impacts right from the start. Other types of projects that are considered to be low VMT generators are traffic signals, roundabouts, things like truck passing lanes or climbing lanes are also considered more for operations and safety than as true through lanes. And then also any project that adds local road capacity and substantially improves non-motorized conditions could be screened out as well. Generally, the idea is if you're improving the multimodal network, getting people to walk or bike or ride the bus more, those types of projects would not have to do this full analysis process. And then similar to land use projects, if you don't have one of those projects, if you have a big roadway widening project where you're adding 2 through lanes to a highway, those types of projects are considered to be capacity increasing projects, and therefore you would have to evaluate their total effects on the regional VMT and compare them to a VMT threshold. And the VMT thresholds that we're recommending for those types of larger capacity increasing transportation projects are you would evaluate it under the short-term and the long-term condition, and under both, you would require a no net increase in total regional VMT. One other thing to note is that transportation projects, if they are included as part of the general plan or the RTP, and that specific document has already been evaluated for CEQA, the individual projects may not need any further analysis or comparisons to thresholds. So that's one way. If you would like to develop or construct a big highway widening, maybe that would have a significant impact on its own because it does result in an increase in regional VMT. However, if that was analyzed as part of a larger regional planning document, and that larger regional planning document is able to achieve a reduction in VMT, that's one way you could get those larger capacity increasing projects approved, even though they may have significant impacts on their own. And just as a quick example of how a transportation project would be evaluated with these thresholds, we're going to take a look at the Greenlee Road extension, which is something that has been planned at some level for quite a while in the area. And so you can kind of see a rough layout of where that Greenlee Road extension would be in the image on the right. And generally the way you would evaluate this is that you would estimate the overall regional VMT without the project, and then you would model in that new roadway link in the regional travel demand model and estimate the total regional VMT with the project. And so we did that for this project and found that this Greenlee Road extension specifically increases VMT in the region by about 1,500 VMT per day. And the cause for this change is that you're basically shortening distances for people's trips. Further away destinations suddenly become more attractive if they have a new, more direct route to get there. You may be decreasing travel times in downtown Sonora as you've given people kind of a way to bypass the downtown area, which can get congested. And then also you just have to account for the fact that certain trips are just going to take the new road and their overall trip length, while maybe the time to get to the location is the same, their trip length may change just because of the new route they're taking. So when you take all these things into account, like I said, this project has a slight increase on VMT, and so its impact might be significant on its own. But as we discussed, if you included this as part of the general plan, the increase in VMT that's created by this project is likely so small that it could be offset by all the reductions that are going to be planned to occur from all the land use and other development that's going to happen in the region moving forward. And so, that is likely how a project like this would be evaluated moving forward. And that brings us to the end of my presentation. And so now I think I wanted to leave it open to see if there was any questions or comments, and we could discuss those.
Are there any board questions, comments?
This is John. Don't just a comment. I've said to this, maybe this could be the third or fourth time. And Mario, you do an excellent job of laying everything out. And, TCTC has worked on it, Quincy also. So it does look complicated, but it's not that complicated. And I think that I'm certainly going to support the recommendation.
Right. Seeing no board questions, I agree with what John just said, that appreciate the way this was laid out and the presentation. I think it was straightforward, and I appreciated the way that it was organized and presented. With that, I'd ask if there is any public comment at this time. There is no public comment. I'm going to bring this back to the board.
Yeah, and I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution for vehicle miles travel thresholds, CEQA compliance related to transportation analysis using the, do I need to choose option 3?
The resolution has the proposed screening criteria in there, so if it was something other than option 3, we would need you to.
So the proposed resolution approving the proposed criteria. And also thank you very much to staff for all of the extensive hard work that's gone into this. If those watching at home would like to look at the packet, it's quite lengthy and involved, so it's a lot of work.
Second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Campbell, a second from Supervisor Rotifer. Cece, will you please do roll call?
Supervisor Sherry Brennan.
Aye.
Supervisor Ryan Campbell.
Aye.
Supervisor Anaya Kirk.
Aye.
Supervisor John Gray.
Aye.
Supervisor Carr Rotifer.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. And again, thank you. All right. Our 10:30 appointment has been pulled. And so we will go back to item 10.
Consideration of approving comments in opposition to Assembly Bill 660 related to the use of law enforcement for contact tracing. If you're interested in providing public comment, please call 209-533-6581.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Liz Peterson with the County Administrator's Office and the Office of Emergency Services. This item was brought to our attention on July 29th at the Yosemite Gateway Area Coordination Team meeting that we have weekly. The item before you today is consideration of approving comments in opposition to Assembly Bill 660. This bill would, the specific provisions of the bill would propose that legislation would include that data collected, received, or prepared for purposes of contact tracing shall not be shared with any entity other than a public health entity. Also, the data shall not be subject to the California Public Records Act requests or the Ralph M. Brown Act. And that a law enforcement official shall not engage in contact tracing. When we discussed this item on the with the meeting, Yosemite Gateway Area Coordination Team meeting, Madera County brought this up to our attention, and Mariposa County also expressed interest in opposing this bill. The issue is that without the assistance of law enforcement in small rural counties, contact tracing would be nearly impossible. There is some concern from the assembly member who proposed the legislation that data collected in the contact tracing process could then be shared with other law enforcement or federal immigration officials. And so there's some concern about confidentiality with the data, but ultimately I think, there are some unintended consequences if this legislation were to pass. Again, looking at small rural counties who have limited capacity for things like contact tracing, and then the crucial need for quick response when it comes to contacting those folks who may have been in contact with a positive COVID case. So this is being brought to your board in consideration to oppose the legislation. It is, as of July 14th, it has been referred to the Senate Judiciary Committee, and there is no vote set, or there's no date yet to vote on the legislation, but it does appear to be moving quickly. So there are some draft comments attached for your board's consideration.
Are there any questions? I will just make a comment then that when this came forward, it was alarming to us because Mrs. Spino, I think, could let us know how much we have used our different law enforcement partners, and we do have a number of them, to help us with the contact tracing. I will say that I have reached out to RCRC, and they are going to be commenting on this, and I also think that it would be appropriate to reach out to CSAC, because I don't think it's just our rural counties that are going to be dramatically impacted by our ability to get out there in a very swift and efficient manner in doing this contact tracing. And I don't think any of us oppose the confidentiality pieces. We want to ensure confidentiality, but we certainly need to be able to utilize all the resources that we have available to us when we're doing this contact tracing. So I would say that I know that the Yosemite Gateway partners will be moving on this swiftly, and RCRC will be also, and I, again, would encourage us to reach out to CSAC.
Okay.
I just have one comment, because I had to email Liz a couple days ago or a day ago. I get the purpose of the letter. I just think we should be clear to put that in the letter, because I understand why we oppose it, but that reasoning wasn't in the memo to the board. So I would just recommend that we make that clear in the letter why we oppose it, because of our limited resources and whatnot.
In the letter or in the memo? Because I think it's in the letter, but if you would like to add some additional clarification, I'm happy to do that.
If it's in the letter, then great. I didn't
Okay.
see the attachment, so thank you.
Yep, no, it's okay.
Any other questions, comments? Do we have any public comment on this? I'm going to bring it back to the board.
Move on staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion from Supervisor Rotifer, a second from Supervisor Campbell. All those, please do the roll call.
Supervisor Sherry Brennan.
Aye.
Supervisor Ryan Campbell.
Aye.
Supervisor Daniel Kirk.
Aye.
Supervisor John Gray.
Aye.
Supervisor Carl Rotifer.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Will the clerk please read item 11?
Consideration of approving 4 separate agreements from professional service in each of 4 categories: surveying, geotechnical, environmental, and cultural resources, and 3 separate agreements for professional services in each of 2 categories: hydrology, hydraulics, and traffic engineering, and authorizing the board chair to sign the agreements, and delegating signature authority to Director of Public Works for task orders issued under said agreements.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Blossom Scott Heim with the Public Works Engineering Division. Public Works currently has 33 active projects that are in various stages from preliminary engineering to construction. These include local, state, and federally funded projects. To streamline delivery of these projects, staff developed a request for qualifications, requesting on-call consultant services in 6 categories: surveying, geotechnical, environmental, hydrology, hydraulics, cultural resources, and traffic engineering. The RFQ states that the county will enter a 3-year on-call contract with the option of 2 one-year extensions with up to 4 pre-qualified consultants in each category. Maximum value of each contract over the life of that 5 years will be $250,000 each for surveying, geotechnical, hydrology, hydraulics, and cultural resources, and $500,000 for environmental and traffic engineering. Consultants will be issued task orders on an as-needed basis. Staff received 51 statements of qualifications in all categories, and a selection committee reviewed and ranked each SOQ and selected the top firms in each category. The top-ranked consultants are identified in the attachment to your memo. The Engineering Division is recommending award of 22 separate agreements as summarized in the memo, and delegating signature authority to the Director of Public Works for task orders issued under the agreements.
Are there any questions? No questions. Is there any public comment? No public comment. I will bring this back to the board.
I'll move on staff recommendation.
I'll second.
And that's staff recommendation 1 and 2, I believe.
Yes.
1 through 6.
All of them.
Thank you. A motion from Supervisor Rotifer. I believe the second was from Supervisor Kirk. Will you please do roll call?
Supervisor Sherry Brennan.
Aye.
Supervisor Ryan Campbell.
Aye.
Supervisor Anaya Kirk.
Aye.
Supervisor John Gray.
Aye.
Supervisor Carl Rotifer.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, ladies. Okay. Will the clerk please read item 12?
Consideration of approving comments in support of the social and ecological resilience across the landscape project.
All right. Ms. Yaley or Ms. Peterson?
Yeah, we're going to tag team this morning. Liz Peterson, County Administrator's Office, and I have Quincy Yaley with the Community Development Department. Okay, so we are pleased this morning to present to your board the opportunity for comments on the social and ecological resilience across the landscape, or CERL, proposed action. This is an action that has been developed in cooperation with Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions, or YSS, as we commonly know them, collaborative group, with a commitment to getting vegetation treatments done that benefit the environment, the economy, and the community. The proposal contains the environmental analysis for the use of prescribed fire, hand thinning, mastication, mechanical thinning, non-native invasive weed control, and limited salvage operations to achieve the project objectives. The Cyril project area is approximately 117,000 acres and is centrally located on the forest with portions located on the Calaveras, Miwok, and Summit Ranger districts, overlapping major portions of the Middle and South Fork Stanislaus River. And I do have a map attached in the packet for your information. This might look familiar from the last board meeting because this is related to the YSS opportunity area where we have some funding that we received from the Forest Service, by we I mean the county, to conduct some surveys in the same area in conjunction with this project the Forest Service is proposing. So the Cyril interdisciplinary team at the Forest Service is developing a proposal to conduct vegetation management in strategic locations across the landscape. The plan is to reduce accumulated fuels and shift vegetation structure and composition towards conditions more in alignment with the natural range variation where ecological processes and adaptive capacity can continue to evolve together. This project has been in development for quite a while, and it's a testament to the collaboration and partnership between all of the members of YSS, in particular the leadership team, and the Stanislaus National Forest staff. Just to bring some perspective, to have NEPA planning complete on this large of a landscape will be the first effort of this magnitude to make meaningful contribution to the scale portion of what we often say, increasing pace and scale of forest treatment activities in our area. The Cyril project, as I mentioned, is out for an initial 30-day designated opportunity for public participation. Only those who submit timely and specific written comments during the public comment period will be eligible to file an objection. And there is a public open house on the proposed project on August 5th from 5 to 7 p.m., and comments on the project are due August 15th. Because of those factors, the fact that comments are due on the 15th and yet there's an open house tomorrow, staff is recommending your board authorize Chair Brennan to work directly with staff to refine comments in support of this project after any additional comments or insight have been received after the public open house. And so we are available for any questions.
I'm just going to make a few additional really quick comments. This board may remember that the Forest YSS talked about a project called M2K approximately a year ago, and it was a very aggressive, very large landscape consideration, NEPA analysis across the Stanislaus Forest and part of the Sierra Forest. It turned out, in fact, to be probably a little bit too large for some of the other jurisdictions that are not as far ahead as, I'm going to say, YSS and Tuolumne County in the collaborative process. And so it became evident that it was somewhat stalling out. I really want to give a lot of credit and recognition to both YSS and the Stanislaus National Forest leadership for moving forward. We were adamant that we were ready to do something on a much larger scale that really looked at 5 major criteria. And we have said, for as long as I have been on this board, we need to increase pace and scale in resiliency, and that's utilizing all of the tools, all of the different methods that we have in getting our natural resources into a more healthy, fire-resilient condition. And this project specifically looks at, when you look at the maps, is underlying what I'm going to say is just on the north side of 108, if you will, in what is some of our most fire-prone landscapes and has probably the least fire history in the county on it. And so I cannot support this strongly enough. I think that this board should support it. I wish I could be on the call. Unfortunately, it conflicts with the Yosemite Gateway Partnership call that we have. I will try and attend it, get on it later, because I feel so strongly that we need to move forward in these ways. And so I hope I have all convinced you, and I think that you have all independently articulated also the need for these kinds of opportunities. So,
Madam Chair.
Supervisor.
Well, I've said many times what a unique experience or effort YSS is, certainly in this state. And I thank them greatly for all, especially the leadership team, as you said. And this is really important. One of the first things that Supervisor Brennan and I were faced with when we first got elected and took office in 2013 was rimfire. And, it left a lasting impression on not just all the members of the board at that time. Supervisor Gray was also on there and had a little bit more tenure than we did at the time. But not just the board at the time, our entire community was impacted by that. And I think we have been through efforts of some other people that have been on this board before, and current members of this board pushing real hard for projects like this. And without YSS, we couldn't have done it. And I want to point out the leadership that our chairwoman, Supervisor Brennan, has provided over the years in this area as well. And so, Sherry, I want to, on behalf of the entire county, I want to thank you for that leadership. And I think we'd be fools not to support this. So with that, I'll shut up.
Yeah, and I was going to say something similar, that Chairwoman Brennan did an excellent job outlining the project, its benefits, and giving credit to the various agencies that have made this possible, except she left out herself. And so in following with Supervisor Rotifer, I want to give her significant credit for the work that she's done in her advocacy in this area. And it's something significant to me, not just by the fact that it focuses on an area that's primarily in District 2 in the northeast of the county, but just on behalf of the residents that live in Cedar Ridge and some of these areas that I can think of 2 or 3 of the most fire-prone, most dangerous areas needing this kind of attention in the county, and this is number 1 on my list. So I agree wholeheartedly that we need to support this, and thank you, Chairwoman Brennan and Supervisor Rotifer, for the work that you've done thus far getting us to this point.
All right, well, I'll finish. Oh, go ahead, John. You go.
Okay. I agree with everything everybody has said. I think I'd be remiss, though, if I didn't include former Supervisor Handelt in the whole operation of getting some of this stuff set in place. He was also very instrumental. So do appreciate his help. I know he's not here now, and probably doesn't mean too much, but to me, it's important that he be recognized for all the work that he did put in it also. That's good.
Thank you, John. Supervisor Kirk?
Yeah, and I'll summarize it. Yeah, I wrote down give honor to who honors due. Hanvelt, Supervisor Hanvelt, Supervisor Royce at the time, Rotifer, and then of course we talked about, but Sherry Brennan. You know, I'm coming in on the heels of this, and I get to watch this actually take place. So, just kudos to everybody who's been involved with this and gotten into this point. I'm looking at the map. This whole thing borders my district, or is in my district. And I went fishing at Lions Lake over the weekend with my boy. We went up to the inlet to go fly fishing, and he brought up the fact this would be a really bad place to have a fire. And so he's 8 years old. He gets it. So just thank you, YSS. I know there's folks on there who we disagree about some development, some other things, but this is hands down one of the coolest projects to see form and to see take place. And I hope there's more of this to come. So thank you, YSS. Thank you, Jason Kiken at U.S. Forest Service. But just thank you to all the supervisors before me who got on board and who really kicked it into gear after Rimfire. It's going to be really awesome to watch this take place in the coming year. So thank you, Brendan. I don't mean to be political, but this is a kind of experience that this board has when you have people like Brendan in office who can carry these projects and start these projects and see them through. It's going to be important for our future. So I'll just thank you.
So is there any public comment at this time? Seeing no public comment, I'm actually going to do something that is a little off kilter,
Make
and
the motion.
I'm going to make a motion to support the staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion from Supervisor Brennan, a second from Supervisor Rotifer. Please do roll call.
Supervisor Sherry Brennan.
Aye.
Supervisor Ryan Campbell.
Aye.
Supervisor Nykirk.
Aye.
Supervisor John Gray.
Aye.
Supervisor Carr Rotifer.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, ladies. All right. At this time, I would like to read the closed session items. We will go into closed session and do reports after our 1:30 appointments. Cece, will you please read item 13, 14, 15, and 16?
Closed session public employee performance evaluation. Authority Government Code Section 54957B1, Title Community Development Director. Closed session conference with labor negotiations, Tracy Riggs, County Administrator Eric Earhart, Assistant County Administrator Wendy Hoffman, Brady, Assistant Health and Human Services Agency Director, Ann Fremd, Human Resources Director, and Kimberly Phipps, Human Resources Analyst. As Authority Government Code Section 54957.6, United Domestic Workers of America. Closed session conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Authority Government Code Section 54956.9D1, County of Tuolumne versus the Budfather Collective et al., Tuolumne County Superior Court, case number CV 62231. Closed session conference with real property negotiators, Tracy Riggs, County Administrator, Eric Earhart, Assistant County Administrator, and Deborah Bautista, Clerk, Auditor, Controller, Authority Government Code Section 5495689, Calavera Street, Sonora, California, APN 056100001 and 056103010. To discuss price and terms of payment, negotiating parties, Lorraine Smirden and Virginia Sue Holman.
Do we anticipate a report out? All right. With that, we will go into closed session.
4,519 square foot portion of a 6.2 acre parcel from RE5 to RE2 under Title 17 of the Tuolumne County Ordinance Code located at 19448 and 19440 Rawhide Road, Jamestown, APN 058-390-018 and 058-390-010.
And will you remind the public, please, when we open the public hearing, what number they can call?
Please call in for public comment at 209-533-6518.
Thank you. Staff report.
Hello, my name is Tara Lynn Turner, and I'm the project land use technician for rezone RZ 19-011. The applicants are David and Jody Rumsey, Gary Collins, and Lucinda Wilson. The adopted Tuolumne County vision, mission, and value statements were applied during the review of the project. Innovative and creative approaches to problem solving, as well as responding to the current and future needs of the community, have been considered. The project is an ordinance for a zone change to rezone approximately 350 square foot portion of a parcel from RE2 to RE5 and approximately a 0.56 acre portion of a parcel from RE5 to RE2. The zone change is being requested to facilitate a lot line adjustment between two parcels. This would result in the existing structures being located on the appropriate sides of the property boundaries. The lot line adjustment is not being considered at this time and will be handled by the county surveyor at a later date. The project is located at 19448 and 19440 Rawhide Road in the community of Jamestown. Assessor's parcel numbers 058-390-018 and 058-390-010. The general plan land use designation of the project site is estate residential. The project site map depicts adjoining parcels within the vicinity. The RE2 and RE5 zoning is consistent with the surrounding parcels. The exhibit map shows the property lines proposed to be adjusted with a lot line adjustment at a later date. The areas to be rezoned to RE2 and RE5 are identified in the ordinance map. Notices of the proposed project were sent by mail to 31 adjoining property owners on November 15th of 2019. No comments were received by the Community Development Department. Here are the required findings of the rezone application. Evidence and the staff's response to each point can be found in the agenda report. Tuolumne County Planning Commission recommended approval of RZ 19-011 on May 20th, 2020. For the rezone RZ 19-011, the Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors may either approve the project with modifications, deny the project, or send the project back to staff for further review. Are there any questions?
Are there any board questions? Okay, seeing none. At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. I will remind the public, please hold your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to comment?
Hi, thank you, board members. This is Richard James with Land and Structure. I'm the surveyor helping the Rumseys facilitate this ultimately lot line adjustment project. And if you folks had any questions, I'd love to help answer them for you today.
Thank you. I don't see any questions. Thank you for calling in. Is there any other public comment? At this time, I will close the public hearing.
Madam Chair, since this is in my district, I'll move, can I just move on staff recommendation? I move on staff recommendation.
All right.
Sorry, I didn't have.
And I will second.
Did I have a second? I'm sorry. I have a motion from Supervisor Rotifer, a second from Supervisor Campbell. Supervisor Gray is no longer in attendance, and so I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Gray absent. All right. Will you please read our second 1:30 appointment?
Public hearing to consider Crothers conditional use permit CUP 19011 to allow development and operation of a recreational facility including a ropes course, maze, climbing wall, and associated accessory structures on a 335.8 acre parcel zoned AE 37. AP under Title 17 of the Tuolumne County Ordinance Code, resolution for Williamson Act Contract, Tuolumne County Ordinance Code, resolution of Williamson Act Contract WA 19005 to rescind existing Williamson Act Contract WA 06002 and execute a new Williamson Act contract on the 335.8 acre site to amend and approve the agricultural management plan to include the recreational development pursuant to resolution 10604 located at 2335 State Highway 120 Groveland, assessor parcel number 066260048 and 066250001. Please call in at public hearing time at the public comment at 209-533-6581. 209-533-6581.
Thank you.
Natalie. Hello, I'm Natalie Rizzi, and the project we have is Conditional Use Permit CUP 19-011 and Williamson Act Contract WA 19-005, and the applicant is Timothy Crothers. The project includes conditional use permit CUP 19-011 to allow the development and operation of a recreational facility, including a ropes course, maze, climbing wall, and associated accessory structures, and resolution for Williamson Act Contract WA 19-005 to rescind existing Williamson Act Contract WA 06-002 and execute a new contract to amend and approve the agricultural management plan to include the recreational development. The project site is located at 23350 State Highway 120 in the community of Groveland. The project site is within Supervisorial District 4. Assessors parcel numbers 66-260-48 and 66-250-01. The project site consists of two parcels totaling 335.8 acres that are zoned AE 37 AP with a general plan land use designation of agricultural. Here is a map of the project site and surrounding parcels. The recreational facility would be located on APN 66-260-48. The project was considered by the Agricultural Advisory Committee on March 19, 2020. The project was determined to be consistent with Resolution 10604 and applicable government code sections. The Agricultural Advisory Committee recommended approval of the project and determined that the proposed recreational facility would be considered a compatible use pursuant to government code sections 51201 and 51238. Adjoining property owners within 1,000 feet were notified of the project via mail on December 10, 2019. The project proposal was shared on social media, so people who are not property owners within 1,000 feet also commented on the project. The Community Development Department received 8 responses at that time. 6 additional comments have been received since the posting of the agenda, which have been forwarded to the board members. 4 of the total responses are in opposition, 8 are in support, and 2 are in support with some concern. The response letters address concerns about the Williamson Act provisions. The project has been reviewed by the Agricultural Advisory Committee. They determined the project to be consistent with Resolution 10604, which contains the county's regulations for the Williamson Act and applicable sections of Government Code. They determined the use to be compatible use to agriculture. Concerns were raised about the impact to the cattle drive. The applicant will utilize the remainder of the site for the existing cattle drive operation. The facility would encompass less than 10% of the site. Concerns were raised about fire hazards. The project has been reviewed by the Tuolumne County Fire Prevention Division. Conditions have been incorporated into the project's conditions of approval to reduce fire hazards. Additionally, trees have been removed on-site in accordance with an approved timber harvest plan. Concerns were raised about emergency services. The Groveland Community Services District, California Highway Patrol, and Tuolumne County Sheriff's Office, who would provide emergency services to the site, were notified of the proposed project. No responses were received from these agencies. Concerns were raised about trespassing and transients in the area. The entire property is fenced with an access gate at the driveway, which will be locked when the facility is not open. Additional fencing will be provided around the facility. One response indicated that the front of the property has been previously used as a staging area for fire personnel and PG&E, and addressed concerns with the loss of this area. The facility is set back from the highway and will encompass less than 10% of the total area of the parcel. This will allow for space for a staging area in the future. Staff has determined the project to be consistent with each of the required findings. Evidence for each finding can be found in the agenda report. The Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors may approve the project with modifications, deny the project, or send the project back to staff for further review. Do we have any questions?
Are there any board questions? Okay, seeing none, I will open the public hearing and ask if there is any public comment. There is no public comment, so we will close the public hearing.
For my good friend John Gray, since it's in his district, I move we approve conditional use permit CUP 19-011 based on findings A through F and subject to conditions 1 through 42. Further, I move that we rescind the existing Williamson Act Conservation Contract WA 06002 and execute a new Williamson Act Contract WA 19-005 under Resolution 106-04 based on findings A through D, and further that we approve of the agricultural management plan based on findings A through E.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Rotifer, a second from Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Gray absent. Cece, will you please read the next 1:30 appointment?
Public hearing to consider Dietrich ordinance zone change RZ 18006 to rezone 137.5 acres from AE 37 and MUMX under Title 17 of the Tuolumne County Ordinance Code as follows. RE 5, 26.82, A 10, 6426, MU 1926, O 27.47, tentative parcel map T18024 to divide 137.5 acres as follows. 1 to A, 18.30, 1, 10.57, 26.82 plus or minus 336.47. Remainder 45.18 located at 19920 and 19930 Kelly Drive and 13050 Fur Drive in the community of Sonora. Assessor parcel codes numbers 044590001 and 044590003. Please call in for public comment at 209-533-6581.
Staff report.
Hello, again, I'm Natalie Rizzi, and the project we have is Zone Change RZ 18-006, and the applicant is Stephen Dietrich. The project consists of Zone Change RZ 18-006 to rezone 137.34 acres from AE 37 and MUMX to RE5, A10, MU, and O. There would be approximately 26.8 acres of RE5, 64.2 acres of A10, 19 acres of MU, and 27.5 acres of O. The zone change is being requested to facilitate tentative parcel map T18-024 to divide the 137.34 acres into 4 parcels and a remainder. The tentative parcel map is not being considered at this time and will be handled by the county surveyor at a later date. The project site is located at 19920 and 19930 Kelly Drive and 13050 Fur Drive in the community of Sonora. Assessor's parcel numbers 44-590-01 and 44-590-03 within Supervisor District 1. The existing general plan designation of the site consists of estate residential, homestead residential, and mixed use. The proposed zone change is consistent with these designations. Here is a map of the project site and surrounding parcels. The tan color represents the estate residential designation. The darker tan represents the homestead residential designation, and the gray represents the mixed use designation. Here is the ordinance exhibit map showing the proposed zoning. The MU is designated by the hatched lines. The open space is designated by triangles. The RE5 is dotted, and the remaining white area contains the A10. 220 property owners located within 1,000 feet of the project site were notified of the proposed project by mail on July 27, 2018. 20 response letters were received. 15 of those were in opposition, and 5 were neutral with concerns. 4 additional comment letters were received in June 2020, which are opposed. One of the gentlemen who had already submitted a letter in opposition stopped by yesterday to speak with me and wanted me to reiterate his opposition and concern of the pending litigation regarding property boundary disputes. Concerns were raised about homeowners association fees and covenant conditions and restrictions, or CC&Rs, of the Quail Ridge Ranch subdivision. Tuolumne County does not enforce or have jurisdiction over CC&Rs for homeowners associations, and any concerns are not able to be addressed by county staff or the Board of Supervisors. Concerns were raised about the Kelly Drive access. Kelly Drive has been publicly dedicated, which allows use by all members of the public. The county cannot restrict access for roads which have been publicly dedicated. Concerns were raised about wells and water supply. Parcel 1 is served public water by TUD, which has indicated that there is capacity to serve the project. Wells within Tuolumne County are required to be permitted, constructed, and maintained in accordance with Chapter 13.16. Additionally, wells within Tuolumne County utilize water stored in individual fractured rock formations instead of a continuous aquifer. Concerns were raised about traffic. The project has been conditioned to require payment of traffic impact mitigation fees, which are required prior to the development of any new single-family dwelling. Concerns were raised about wildlife habitat and oak trees on site. The project site is proposing 27.47 acres of open space zoning to protect oak woodland and sensitive habitat. Concerns were raised about the potential for further division. Any future land division would be handled by the Tuolumne County Surveyor in accordance with the Subdivision Map Act. It would consist of a discretionary review process in which adjoining property owners would be notified. All land divisions are considered at a public hearing. Concerns were raised about the use of mobile homes. Mobile homes are permitted anywhere a single-family dwelling is permitted. State law does not allow a county to prohibit the use of mobile homes. Concerns were raised about fire hazards. The project has been reviewed by the Tuolumne County Fire Prevention Division. Conditions have been incorporated into the conditions of approval for the tentative map to reduce fire hazards. Concerns were raised about potential development. The project is not proposing any development. Any development of the site in the future would be limited to the permitted and conditional uses within each zoning district. Concerns were raised about property values. The California Environmental Quality Act states that property value concerns, which are a social or economic change, are not considered a significant impact on the environment. Concerns were raised from an adjacent property owner regarding a dispute over property boundaries. County Council has reviewed this and indicated that the matter is considered a civil matter between neighboring property owners and is outside the purview of the county. The Dietrich, Gardellas, and Freres are the owner of record of this portion of land. The project was considered by the Tuolumne County Planning Commission on June 17, 2020. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the project with modifications. The Planning Commission recommended to revise the zoning of Parcel 2 to RE5 from RE3 and to revise the zoning of Parcel 3 to RE10 from RE5 to address impacts related to potential future growth. The applicant is proposing to rezone Parcel 3 to A10 because the minimum parcel size is the same as the recommended RE10, but would be consistent with the zoning of the other parcels. At the meeting, discussions ensued regarding the CEQA exemption. The project was exempt from environmental review under CEQA pursuant to Section 15162 of the state CEQA guidelines because the proposed rezone and land division is consistent with the existing general plan, and the EIR for the 2018 general plan adequately addressed impacts related to these density and growth patterns. Additionally, open space has been incorporated to protect riparian and oak habitat, which are the highest priority habitats on site, and no mitigation was required. Staff has determined that the project is consistent with the findings of the zone change application. Evidence and response to each finding can be found in the agenda report. The Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors may either approve the project with modifications, deny the project, or send the project back to staff for further review. Are there any questions?
Any board questions? All right, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Ask if there's any public comment.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, board members. This is Richard James with Land and Structure. I'm the surveyor of record on this project for the Gardellas and Dietrichs. Hopefully answer any questions you guys may have pertaining to the zone change that's happening today and eventually the parcel map that will follow.
All right, thank you. Don't think there's any questions at this time. Is there any other public comment? Seeing no other public comment, I'm going to close the public hearing. Bring this back. This one is in my district. So actually, I will make the motion to move on approval of zone change RZ 18-006 based on findings A through D.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Gray absent. Thank you very much. At this time, we are going to go back into closed session and wrap that up. And we do not anticipate a report out. Okay.